Know your people personally and intimately, Mr. Government. This is the message I want to put across tonight, and so that we can understand the nature of our oppression and how we can get out of it, and how other people who are not oppressed, how they actually are running successful societies. It all starts with the leadership, with the government. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, up there, and in North Europe, you will see that these are countries that whose citizens uh, are rich because the government made a conscious decision to bless them, a conscious decision to create a society that is wealthy. It's something that even the Americans have failed to do. The American government has failed to actually eliminate poverty across all America, but they chose certain groups of people. For example, they chose rednecks, white men. Okay, white American men were chosen, they were deliberately blessed. Black Americans were deliberately abused through slavery and infusing drugs in their communities, lower education outcomes there, such that they are crushed. You understand? What I'm trying to drive at is that it is all up to governments to decide the future of their own people. Even in Zimbabwe, it's up to Idi Mnangagwa to decide if he actually wants to bless his own family or bless the whole country. Even in South Africa, it's the same thing with the ANC. If you look at South Africa, you see that actually, ANC is always blamed. But if you look at Gauteng province and other provinces up the northwest and Mpumalanga province, you will see a lot of black progress ever since 1994. You will see in Polokwane and in Zanini, then rural Venda, you will see big mansions that black people are building in the rural areas. In Zimbabwe, the Plumtree rural areas have got good houses, but that's nothing. They're not double stories, they're not mansions, but they're the best in the country, yes. But look at rural Venda, just Google rural Venda and you see what I'm talking about. You will think it's something because the ANC government made a conscious decision of implementing black economic empowerment, and even Triple BEE, broad-based black economic empowerment. It actually is a real thing in South Africa. It really did happen. Okay, there's a lot of black people in this country that are rich. I've worked in restaurants. I know black people who buy expensive alcohol. They spend 100,000 on parties. On just one bill for one night. It means that ANC has made progress. Of course, there's corruption. There's corruption even in the United States, but progress has been made. But what I'm saying is that it was a conscious decision made by the leadership to make sure that happens. To the extent to which it becomes successful, or the extent to which it covers the whole population, is up to the quality of leadership that we have in the country, more specifically the hearts of the quality, the hearts of the leaders. Because when it comes to knowledge, there is no shortage of knowledge, whether it's scientific knowledge or it's knowledge of economics, of psychology, or whatever developmental studies that there is. There is no shortage of knowledge on how to build countries successfully. What is short is the heart. Okay, do our leaders have hearts? You see, in China in the late 1976 going forward, when Chairman Mao died and their new leaders started to change China, uplift billions of people out of poverty, it was a conscious decision. Conscious decision. They knew what they were doing and they did it systematically, building their own uh, industries at home, creating employment at home, protecting their industries before they became global, or before they began to accept foreign capital. They had some strong capital controls in China. China just opened up to the world most recently when it comes to capital flows. So you will see that it was only Hong Kong that was really open to the whole world, but mainland China was more like another Argentina, you know. But China succeeded because they ended up opening the world, and they were also the manufacturing hub of the whole world. But Argentina didn't become the manufacturing hub of the whole world. Argentina was a manufacturing hub for Argentina, not exporting and not importing. That thing, their economic model crashed. Japan also has done well with their friends with America after the Second World War. Of course, they had their Great Depression, but you see that Japan is in the Japan instance, they actually also did the same thing. They had a heart for the Japanese. The Keiretsu model worked well in Japan, and they conquered the world. We've got Toshiba, we've got Mitsubishi, all of these car companies, you know, electronic companies that are coming from Japan. But they became to be too xenophobic, and therefore when they didn't have young people to I mean, when their population began to age, they could not allow foreigners to come in and fill in the gap, and amongst other things, so they got they got into a depression which they haven't recovered from. But the best guys now in the Nordic countries are still holding the fort because their governance system work for their people. So what's wrong in Africa? What is wrong in Africa is the same thing that we've had even during the slave trade. We know that it was our village chiefs that were selling people to the Arab slaves and to the European slaves. Even today, you still see governments like Idi Mnangagwa's government selling their people as slaves. Okay, we no longer use the word slave, we use the word low wage income earners, whereby the Zimbabweans, instead of developing their economy, developing their ecosystems in the country, they have actually, I mean, the government has failed to develop that, therefore, exposing the Zimbabweans to be cheap labor all over the world. Okay, not that no, come to look at it this way. Imagine if Zimbabwe was another province of South Africa. Do you think that we would be having problems like we have now? No. It would just be like another South Africa. But because that portion of land was attributed to another group of guys called ZANU-PF, 43 years ago they took over from Ian Smith and began to chart their destiny. But that destiny that they charted did not bring victory for all of us, because in their mind they never thought for all of us. Robert Mugabe came into power. The first thing he thought about was crushing Joshua Nkomo. And Joshua Nkomo isn't just Joshua Nkomo; he's the whole Ndebele tribes and all those other tribes that fall under the Ndebele banner, the Kalangas, Donkas, and all those people that are in Matipele land. And therefore, by focusing on crushing that people, you've got half of the country or so crushed. And then in the 90s, because it doesn't always work when you have got a policy of crushing people, eventually you end up crushing the ones that are around you. After you finish crushing those that are there, you start crushing those that are around you. Mramba Swina happened. Twangirai happened. When he was crushing Twangirai, he was actually crushing half of the people in Mashonaland that were suffering. Twangirai and all of his MTC people. Now ZANU PF happened. ZANU PF is also suffering. Mnangagwa is now crushing ZANU PF itself. It's just him and his clan. ZANU PF is crushed. So you see, this policy of not looking for the interest of everybody else, but just for narrow-mindedness, it it keeps on getting smaller and smaller. Even in that Mnangagwa clan, they're gonna start fighting until it's about selfishness. Every man for himself, eat for himself only. You understand? So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I want us to get to a point of understanding that in order for us to build a country that is successful, the onus is on the government to actively make a conscious decision that we are going to create a society that works for everybody. We want to know every citizen in the country, and we would want to know how to save best the citizen. If the citizen is not educated, let's give him education. They don't have a job, let's give them a job. You understand? If they are unskilled, let's give them skills. If they need reskilling, let us reskill them. If they need retooling, let us retool them. Let us go into industry by industry and see how we can go, how we can help them. Look at the farmers. We need to retool our farmers. We need to create an ecosystem of farming. Okay, introduce technologies in farming, introduce banking in farming so that our farmers actually run a proper business with bankers, with all this infrastructure, whether it's physical infrastructure or it's a technological infrastructure and knowledge infrastructure, creating agricultural hubs. Go to the mining industry, doing something similar. Go to the transportation industry, the guys were transporting, we have got trucks. No, what are their concerns? Let's get that trucking industry going on well. Let's talk about buses and commuter omnibus in the towns. Let us get the roads fixed. First of all, I would fix the road from town to the locations or town suburbs where the roads that they take, and get them proper new cars funded by the government, but or a government and or banks that are aligned with that policy of actually making sure that our transportation industry is profitable to the participants of that transport industry. Omalaicha, what is the government doing for Omalaicha? Do we understand what laws needs to be put so that they are able to export and import goods into and out of the country in a profitable way and still pay taxes, provide employment? Do we have a government that thinks about that and thinks about the guys that are in Tumbane, they drinking alcohol and taking drugs? How can we rehabilitate them? If they are undereducated, what skills do we need to give them? Okay, what jobs do they qualify for, and where can we put them? What industries? You see, government should create industries. You hear what I'm saying? Let me restart again. I said the government. Who God? The government should be the one at the forefront of creating industries and grooming industries and growing industries and making sure that our local born industries are competitive in the region and globally. To understand, economic policy has got to be to do with economic planning. We need to plan which industry we're focusing on. As a government, you must have a policy for each industry that you're planning on so that you can help it to grow. After you do that, you also go to other industries as well. There's multiplicity of industries out there that I haven't even touched on. I'm talking about electronics industry. What policy do we have on making sure that we are able to produce electronics in Zimbabwe? To produce our own TVs, to produce even our own motor vehicles, to produce our own cell phones, communication systems. Hmm? Are we thinking of competing with Cisco, or we're always trying to be, like buying stuff from them? Okay. Are we thinking of competing with Huawei, with Samsung? Are we thinking of competing with BMW and Mercedes Benz? Because these are the things that we use in the country and in the continent. How come we still don't have it now? We've got Africans that are in Harvard, that are all over the world studying the engineering and all of those things. How come they don't have a base where they can express themselves? I can tell you why. It's because the leaders in Africa do not have a heart or understanding that is actually what they are supposed to do. That is their job, to create an environment where entrepreneurs and startups are supported and are able to grow the economy. Government or governance has got to do with grooming all of those things, not just to become popular and say I'm the most powerful man. That's it. Powerful and then do what? You understand what I'm talking about? You are powerful. Robert Mugabe was powerful. He didn't want to get out of power. But what was he staying in power for? Why do you want to be in power? Idim Mnangagwa is in power, but he wants to keep on to be in power. For what? What is his purpose? Because if I look at the economy since 2017, ever since Emerson Mnangagwa got into power, it has gone down. The country is terrible. But he will still be saying that things are good. But then you ask yourself, does this guy understand his job as a president? Or it's either he doesn't understand this job, or he does but he doesn't want, or he's just a thief. Like, but and then I'm beginning to think, if he's a thief, then doesn't he know that we can see that? Oh, he doesn't care. Heartless. Heartless, completely heartless. So we really need to be thinking